I'm Jane Cronus. My pronouns are she, her, and you're very welcome here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto. We gather, our different paths entwined, to deepen our spiritual lives, nourishing connection, learning from each other, caring for each other, tending to our world. Our guest speaker this morning is Reverend Deborah Lee. She has worked at the intersection of faith and social justice for over 30 years in popular education, community organizing, and advocacy connecting issues of race, gender, economic justice, anti-militarism, LGBTQ inclusion, and immigrant rights. She's consistently sought to strengthen the voice and role of faith communities in today's social movements. Through the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity, IM4HI, she has helped build a network of 250 congregations, 2,000 faith leaders, and 250 community partners committed to immigrant justice and ending mass incarceration. IM4HI has helped create a network of congregations in California to create post-release networks of support for migrant youth and families, and to defend those targeted by detention and deportation. Her organization has also led efforts to close the West County Detention Facility in 2018, and has been integral to successful campaigns to pass local and state laws to protect immigrants from detention and deportation, and most recently, to ban private prisons and detention centers in the state of California. The organization plays a key role in fighting for decarceration in Southern California and saving lives of those detained and incarcerated during the COVID-19 pandemic. Appropriately, our justice partner for this month is Deborah's organization, the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity. You'll hear more about it in her sermon, but here's an introductory video.
At the intersection of spirituality and social justice, there is a convergence of people of faith, defending the humanity of immigrants and the dignity of the incarcerated. Because every person is sacred. Compassion has no borders, and love has no walls. The Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity.
You can also support IM4HI by attending their benefit concert, Love Over Fear, on Monday, November 13th in Berkeley. You can find more details and ticket information on their website, im4humanityintegrity.org. You can also find that link at the very bottom of the church's homepage. You'll find a listing of other events today and this week in the order of service. For more information, you can follow the links in the online version or check out the church website. Masks are not required, but are encouraged. We express our mutual respect by supporting each other's decisions about masking, distancing, and other health measures. If you're here in person and you have questions about Unitarian Universalism or this congregation, stop by the welcome table with the blue tablecloth and chat with our membership engagement coordinator, John Wright. And now, let us begin our service. If you have a chalice there with you, please light it along with us. These words by Israel Zangwill. Come into the circle of love and justice. Come into the community of mercy, holiness, and health. Come, and you shall know peace and joy.
With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from the book of Isaiah. Is not this the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, and let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and bring the homeless poor into your house, when you see them naked, to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin? Then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, we allow ourselves to arrive here fully.
Good morning. This is the time for all ages. I'd like to invite those who are young or young at heart to join me up here. Well, I'll be in the pulpit today because we have some beautiful pictures to show you on the screen. One thing about mass incarceration, it means that there's a lot of kids without parents, without mommies, without daddies. This is the story of one child whose life was impacted greatly. This story is called Knock, Knock, Daddy's Dream for Me. All right, my friends. So, every morning I play a game with my father. He goes knock, knock on my door, and I pretend to be asleep until he gets right next to me in bed. Then I get up and I jump into his arms. And I say, "Good morning, Papa." And my Papa, he tells me, "I love you." We share a game, knock, knock. And then, one day, the knock never comes. I wait, but Papa's not there to play our game. And morning after morning, he never comes. He never comes to help me get ready for school. He never comes to cook my favorite scrambled eggs. He never comes to help me with homework after school. I listen to his door, but I never hear his knock. And then I think, maybe he will come back when I am not home. So I decide to write him a letter and leave it on my desk. I say, "Papa, come home, 'cause I miss you. Miss you waking me up in the morning and telling me that you love me. Papa, please come home, 'cause there are things I don't know, and when I get older, I thought you could teach me how to dribble a ball, how to shave, how to drive, how to fix a car. Papa, come home, 'cause I just want to be just like you, but I'm forgetting who you are." 2 whole months pass, and my letter to Papa still sits on my desk. But I leave it, and I wait for Papa's knock. And then, one day, I come home from school, and on my desk, I find a letter from my father. Dear son, ask your mama to help you make those scrambled eggs we love. Remember to do your homework before you watch TV. I'm sorry, I will not be coming home. For every lesson I will not be there to teach you, hear these words. As you grow older, shave in one direction with strong, deliberate strokes to avoid irritation. Dribble the page with the brilliance of your ballpoint pen. Knock, knock with the knowledge that you are my son, and you have a bright, beautiful future. Despite my absence, you are still here. Knock, knock. Who's there? You are. Thank you for listening to my story today and listening to what it's like to have your father, your parent, be far, far away from you and out of your life. This is one reason why we work so hard for justice in our faith. So thank you all for listening to my story. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing number 118 in our hymnal, This Little Light of Mine. Afterwards, I'd like to invite all my CYRE kids to meet me in the lobby, and we will go to RE together.
Thank you, Harry. We now turn our thoughts to the important events of our lives, which we wish this community share. Let us now take a few moments of silent prayer or meditation to hold all that we've heard with compassion and care. Blessed be. Sometimes, a sorrow weighing on our hearts is one of our own actions or inactions. We are human, we strive and go astray, and then we can find joy in noticing these moments and with compassion for ourselves, gently leading ourselves back to how we want to be. Let us now, in silence, recommit ourselves to this path. And now let us read together the affirmation you'll see on screen and in the online order of service. We got it? Not yet. There we go. Let's read together. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and the meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. Please join in singing There Is More Love Somewhere, number 95 in the gray hymnal. Words are on screen and in the online order of service.
The reading this morning is from Professor Dr. Ruth Wilson Gilmore, who's an internationally known activist and co-founder of Critical Resistance and a professor in geography. Concepts of freedom are constantly struggled over. Circulated the planet over the last 500 years and didn't begin with the expansion of European colonialism and imperialism. But certainly these concepts of freedom, central to the struggle of how we make life. So the American project has the word freedom written large across every document, although liberty kind of more strongly than freedom in some places. For some people, perhaps, people for whom a reformist reform is adequate, freedom to participate in all of these institutions and agencies of opportunity and control is adequate. For others of us, that freedom isn't enough. That freedom actually doesn't make possible the flourishing of life as it should be, in part because it rests on an unspoken or not spoken enough foundation of colonialism, as well as an unspoken problem of the redress for slavery and displacement and dislocation that has characterized so much of the last 500 years.
Is this on? Nope, not yet. Now it is. I just wanted to say a couple of words about this anthem that we're about to sing. This anthem was one of the pieces that we purchased at the end of last year in an effort to diversify the choir library, the music library. So it's written by a woman named Rosephanie Powell, who is a contemporary Black American composer. And it's a setting of a poem by Langston Hughes. Oh, and there it is. I asked Tim to put it up on the screen for us so that you could read along while we sing.
Thank you so much, Bruce, to the chorus. That was fantastic, very inspiring. Well, good morning, everyone. It's a joy for me to be here. I think it's the first time I've been here in person to this congregation. I live in Berkeley. Our office is in Oakland, so it's not really that far, but you know how it is. Around the Bay Area and then COVID, so I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate the many ways that you've supported our organization over the past few years. I'm here to talk about, my theme today is called Abolishing Cages, a Journey to Community. And I know that I'm United Church of Christ, but I know the Unitarian Universalists throughout history have a long journey around abolition. And so I wanted to come to you to share with you one small piece of abolition that our organization is a part of. I just came back a little over a week ago. I think it was Monday, so yeah, almost tomorrow it will be a week, from a week-long pilgrimage, which was focused on the question of abolition and this question of freedom. There were 50 of us who traveled on a bus, nearly 500 miles, to all of the 6 remaining detention centers in California. Now, I don't know how many of you know somebody who's an immigrant. Anybody know any? I mean, we're in California. Everybody know somebody who's an immigrant? Okay. All right, good. How many of you are aware of immigration detention? You've heard about it, you've seen it, maybe you've known somebody who was in it. Well, we've been part of a multi-year effort to actually abolish immigration detention, because in the course of American history, that is actually a relatively new phenomena. The first immigration detention facility was Angel Island in the Bay, next to Alcatraz Island, which was established in 1910, primarily to enforce the Chinese Exclusion Act, which was something that affected my family. The Chinese Exclusion Act, you know, from 1880s until World War II ended, was designed to racially exclude people of Chinese descent from coming. And so that detention center was there primarily to enforce that law, but ended up enforcing the law and excluding people from all over the Asia-Pacific region and also the Southern Hemisphere. So up until, I would say, about the 1980s or 1990s, immigration detention was relatively small. But in the 1980s, 1990s, along with the prison boom, which California led the way of the prison boom of mass incarceration, immigration detention also boomed and escalated. So I'm going to go back to the bus that we were on, this pilgrimage, and we called it a pilgrimage because we called it a sacred journey. And it was sacred because of the land that was sacred that we were going to travel to, and also the lives that were sacred to the people who were inside detention and the people with whom we were traveling with. We had a number of faith leaders, we had some community leaders, but we also had people who had once been detained in those very facilities that we were visiting. This was the first time they were returning to their place of trauma, that their place of being kidnapped, of being withheld from their families. They were survivors, and they'd gotten the taste of freedom to be on the bus with us. So the question of freedom we're raising is, what does it mean in the United States when every day tens of thousands of people are deprived of their freedom because they are immigrants, because they were born in another country, that they're detained in cages every day on U.S. soil? So we began in Kern County in Bakersfield. We traveled to Adelanto, to the high desert, to Calexico in Imperial County along the border, and then to San Diego. We traveled over dry fields and lands that were once indigenous and home to the Southern Valley Yokuts, the Serranos, the Kukupah, and the Kumeyaay. These lands that were colonized by Spain, which led to the theft of land, enslavement, forced labor, and actually imprisonment of Native peoples in California's first prisons, the Catholic missions. We drove by parched lands that it seemed impossible to imagine how these parched lands could grow and produce fruits and vegetables that feed the nation in the desert. It was unnatural, and also what was unnatural was the prevalence of prisons that dotted the freeways that we traveled through. prisons that have been intentionally planted there with billions of dollars of investments. In one county, Kern County, there are 26 carceral facilities. The highways, you see signs, the names of prisons, past and present: Corcoran, California City, Chowchilla, Manzanar. Military bases, foreign names imprinted on the land that tell the history of militarization, detention, caging, and prisons. The U.S. government runs the largest immigration detention system in the world, with over 200 immigration prisons or jails, which are essentially immigration prisons. This is just one tiny fraction of the U.S. government's carceral system, which also is the largest in the world, with over 2 million people who are held in cages each day. Immigration detention, just for definition, is the government practice of incarcerating human beings while they wait for a decision on their immigration case or their potential deportation. Immigration detention impacts women, men, mothers, sisters, grandfathers, uncles, brothers, neighbors, carpenters, farm workers, refugees, asylum seekers, and children. President Biden, in the past 2 months, has recently reopened 2 immigration detention centers specifically for children that had been closed earlier. So who is in detention and how does someone end up in detention? People in detention can be documented. That means they could have come here to this country with a visa, with papers, with refugee status. They could be people who are undocumented. They could include people whose status is not current, meaning like they're expired. Their paperwork is expired, or that it's under review by a judge. It can include people seeking asylum and legal protections coming at our borders. On our journey, we also traveled to the San Diego, literally to the border. We were passing coffee through the fence to people on the other side. It can also be people on the bus with us were people who actually came to this country with a visa, and they were detained at the airport, SFO, LAX, and because they were seeking asylum, were then taken to immigration detention centers. It could be people who have lived here for decades, people who live among us, who are our neighbors, whose kids go to school with our kids. It could be people who have a U.S. citizen spouse or U.S. citizen children or have a business in the United States. They could be people who came as refugees, as children during the Vietnam War. Or people who had a green card, but because they have a past conviction or a past interaction with law enforcement and have served their time, they can be then turned over to immigration detention upon completion of parole or completion of their sentence, even after they complete their time, even after they have been rehabilitated and earned release. Because they were not born here, they would have lost their status and are then sent to immigration detention for deportation. On the bus with us was everybody in this category. As you can see, there are many categories. Immigration detention is not a crime. You don't have a conviction. You don't have a public defender. So that means you don't know how long you're going to be there. There are some people inside who we talk to through the phone who have been inside for 9 years. 80% of adults who are in immigration detention in the United States are held in facilities run by for-profit private prisons who publicly trade on the market and are doing very well. In California, 100% of immigrants held are 100% are being held in for-profit prisons because 10 years ago there were 15 detention centers. But the ones that we have been able to close successfully, now there are 6. There were 15, there are now 6. So we are on a trajectory towards abolition. Are the ones that were government contracts, that were ones that were contracting with the federal government with a local county. So the immigration detention facility that I worked closely with, I don't know if any of you ever came to one of our vigils, was the one in Richmond, California. So Contra Costa County. The county had a contract with Department of Homeland Security to house immigrant detainees in their local jail. Santa Clara used to have one as well, a contract. The county in Contra Costa County was getting $5 million a year to house that. So the detention centers we've been able to close have all been ones that have some government accountability. We could go to the county supervisors. We could talk to our elected representatives. We could say, why are we doing this? And they have all been successful. All those county contracts have been closed in California. What remain are the for-profit ones, because who do we go to ask for accountability? So at Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity, our overall mission is to address the criminalization of people of color, primarily through the immigration and incarceration systems. We organize and we bring together people of various faiths and life experiences to work together for the dignity and full participation of immigrants and those who have been impacted by incarceration. Our journey on this pilgrimage was part of a multi-year campaign to close detention centers. I told you it's been going for 11 years, and we've been closing, 9. We've closed 9. Not just us, but in coalition across the state. In the detention center in Richmond, we began a vigil there on Holy Week, Passover and Holy Week of April 2011. We held a monthly prayer service. Many Unitarian churches participated. There are many Unitarian churches in that part of the Bay Area. And after 7 years, the county got out of that contract. One of the most important things I want to share with you is that I experienced on this pilgrimage was the reflections from people, of course, who had been detained, some as recently as 6 months ago. And I want to share with you, can we show the first video clip?
How's everybody doing? My name is Guillermo Medina. I was in detention. I was in this same detention center just about 6 months ago. And first thing, it's a lot of emotions, and then it's just a real trip for my mind to get adjusted to be on the other side of the fence now. But nevertheless, my heart goes out to everybody who we just seen at Yard just about 5 minutes ago. And it is a trip that everything that we're doing here and everything that everybody here is doing to try to shut these places down, because from experience I can tell you myself that this is not a good place where anybody would want to be housed at. This is not an institution where they have the right medical. This is not a place where they house you correctly. You go through a lot of negligence, especially medical people with mental health issues, that they suffer a lot because they're not getting the right treatment, the right medications. The food is always spoiled. And it seems like we just heard from the brother on the phone that they're still going through the same issues today. They were going through those issues a year ago when I was in there. I got out 5 months ago, but it was I did a year and 5 months. So since the beginning of that time up until now, they're still going through the same issue. And it seems like they're not doing nothing to change it, and they're just wasting all the resources that it could go through other better things to educate the youth, to educate, people out here. It's just all.
Share a few other quotes and from other people's testimonies on the pilgrimage. So everything here is going to be quotes there. I thought I was going to die in prison. I actually became a drug addict in prison. It took me 12 years to change. I joined gangs because I felt that gangs had killed my dad when I was 5. The authorities told me I had no chance to get free, no chance to go home. ICE detention is a mental fight. They say this isn't a prison, but it felt like a prison. My long-awaited dream to see my family became a great nightmare when ICE picked me up after I got paroled. I was ordered deported by an immigration judge, caring less of me as if my life didn't matter. While in detention, I endured so much abuse and mistreatment in which I was constantly disrespected by staff. I worked for slave wages of $1 a day. Just to communicate with my family by phone, the cost was enormously high. The commissary inside ICE detention is 4 times more expensive than prison commissary because there's no competitive bidding. And then when you get the commissary, it's molded and expired. We endured repeated sexual abuse by guards. There was gross medical negligence. They're exploiting us and our families. Our farm working families and our low-wage families have to pay $500 to $1,000 a month just so that we can have enough to eat from the commissary. Deep down in my heart, I knew that I did not deserve to be detained, and neither did anyone else. So we went on a hunger strike for 30 days. It was my faith in God which helped me to do it. I wanted to be heard. I'm still recovering today, emotionally, mentally, and physically. We're all human beings. Why can't they see that? Can we show the second video?
We are coming from across the state to visit every single detention center. A few years ago, 10 years ago, there were 14 immigration detention centers in California. Today there are 6.
At the Imperial Regional Detention Facility, we know a lot of people have suffered. We know a lot of people have been treated in inhumane ways. And we believe that a lot of the injustice has already been documented. We believe that it is the federal government knows this.
So around 2020, or in 2020, when COVID hit the facility, a number of people detained mounted a hunger strike, calling for freedom, calling out the unsanitary conditions that were putting their lives at risk here.
I'm just gonna read the story of Juan Sanchez. During a demonstration in my housing unit, security staff removed me by force and put me in the hole for 30 days. I successfully filed a lawsuit against ICE and MTC for retaliation, but I had to drop it because I didn't have a lawyer who could help me.
They are criminalizing BIPOC, Black and Brown, Indigenous communities, and it's the same thing all over again. Same story all over again.
I was always told that, oh, this will never happen, this will never happen, this will never happen. Well, guess what? I'm here with you today.
Here to say, even if these conditions improve, even if they said, fine, we're gonna give you good cleaning products, even if all these conditions got better, it would still be a lockup. It would still be a prison for people who either came here seeking protection or did their time in the criminal punishment system and then get stuck here for years and years. And that has to stop, and it doesn't need to be that way. These millions can go to something good. Good. Good.
So at Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity, our work to abolish cages is grounded in spiritual values, which I bet many of you share. That all people are created in the image of God, that we are to love our neighbor as ourselves, that we must not commit harm, but we have a duty to prevent harm, that no one is born for bondage, and that profiting over the ownership and abuse of other people is immoral. We have successfully closed 9 detention centers, and the result has been that local communities have become more safe. Less people are being rounded up in ICE raids because less beds are available for them. We've successfully created alternatives that actually people don't need to be detained in order to show up to their immigration appointments. They can be home in their community. They can be working and providing for their children. They can have community support to help them stabilize so that they can meet their obligations to show up for immigration hearings, which sometimes can be a process of 4 to 5 years. They don't have to be locked up the whole time. We call that community accompaniment. And then the last piece we've sought to address is the argument given to us by local communities, especially rural communities, who said, but we need the jobs. These detention centers and prisons have been put there by the government. And so we've asked the government of California to do something to help these communities transition out of this carceral economy. So this year, for the first year, we passed a budget initiative of $5 million. It's not very much, considering how much all of this costs. That's an incentive, and it's a tool, and it tells local communities that if you remove the land permit, if you let it expire, or you say, no, we don't want to permit the land to be used in this way for immigration detention, you can qualify for this pot of money that we can go for job retraining, that can go for new and sustainable green industries. We call it HEAL, Healthy Economies Adapting to Last, because the current system is not built to last, and we have to build something sustainable to last. So at every detention center, the 6, we held a vigil. We also held forums discussing this budget initiative in each community. And we asked the local communities, what are the needs? I bet you have needs in this community. What are the needs of this community? What are the dreams of this community? And there was a consistent pattern of response, maybe because so many were rural. They said, we don't have a trauma hospital center. We have to drive hours to the Bay Area to get the kind of specialized care that people have to get flown out on helicopters. And there's horrible trucking accidents and things like that. They wanted trauma hospitals. They wanted mental health care workers. They wanted bilingual nurses, youth counselors, mentors, homeless shelters, affordable housing, a community college, substance abuse treatment, higher teachers' pay, community-based reentry centers, local business development, after-school programs, regulated industries, and jobs that could improve and clean the air quality, which has some of the highest rates of asthma. So our dream for abolition and closing cages is connected to healing of the land that have been burdened with military bases, Superfund sites, and toxic water and air. It's a dream for the healing of people. Pedro, who was on the journey, and he said, since I've been able to get out of detention after 17 years of prison, I'm finally able to get to know my nieces, my 5 nieces who never knew who their uncle was. Aureliado, who said, I was able to hug my mom and knew I wasn't have to go back into a cell, but that my mom we weren't going to be separated again. Freedom is more than civil rights. It's much bigger than that. Freedom means we must radically reorganize society without prisons, and also preventing the conditions that create violence or harm of any kind. Abolition is a movement to end all forms of violence, systemic and interpersonal. And it's about investing in things which prevent harm, which are basic needs: housing, healthcare, elder care, and the possibilities of a life lived differently. One of my mentors, Reverend Phil Lawson, who goes back to the civil rights movement, he said, you know what the opposite of slavery is? He said, the opposite of slavery isn't freedom. He said, the opposite of slavery is community. And I think about this because I think of some of the guys like Guillermo. He's free, but he still has his immigration court case. He still doesn't know what's going to happen. He still could get harassed by the police. He still has barriers to get a job and to get housing. But through this process, we have community. And through community, we can support each other. We can create the beloved community. Angela Davis says freedom is not the end point, because freedom is constantly evolving and expanding. We have new dimensions of freedom yet to be imagined. We can overthrow prisons. We can imagine new and more effective ways to address harm. And we can imagine a flourishing of life as it should be. I offer to us, because probably many of us may not be individually impacted, is that our journey to freedom for us as well is freedom from ignorance that allows evil to prosper. It's freedom from despair and apathy, which immobilizes us. It's freedom from separation from others in society, which isolates us and limits the possibilities that we can take for collective action and power in community. So my invitation for the UU Church of Palo Alto, I'm very serious about this, is there's 2 things. We have an accompaniment program where we ask congregations to accompany newly arrived migrants' families. If they don't have somebody to accompany them, they are often put into immigration detention. The ones who have family already here, they have somebody, they have a name, they have an address. But there are new people coming every day who don't know a soul in the United States with an address. And so we're being asked, and I'm asking congregations everywhere I go, to extend our concept of kinship and family and community. And can we be that first anchor for someone so that they could anchor other people in their families who are also fleeing violence and harm? So we have a training program for congregations who want to do accompaniment. We have families today on a waiting list because we don't have enough teams. We have a need for housing hosts, people who can provide. We have 4 congregations who provide temporary housing, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes a month, sometimes 6 months, in their compound for a family that otherwise would be. Can you imagine coming to this country and your first time and you're living on the streets of the United States under a freeway? We have families like that with children. So we're asking congregations to think about how could they, or people in congregations, how could you be a housing host for temporary housing so someone can catch their breath and get settled, and we'll have accompaniment teams that can help them so they can restart their lives in community, not in a cage. So that's the first one, to think about accompaniment. We have a whole section on our website about accompaniment, what that means, what's the roadmap for a congregation to do accompaniment. We have other congregations here in Palo Alto who have done it. The Congregational Church here in Palo Alto, and also the Lutheran Church in Palo Alto. The second thing is advocacy. And I know you all are very good at advocacy. I'm connected with some of your our UU partners. But to advocate with us to close down detention centers, we're on this goal to close down these last 6. We're also part of a statewide campaign to close 10 prisons in California, which the legislative analyst has said California should close 10 because the numbers are down and this cost is tremendous for these very old and decrepit facilities. And to support us in our efforts to free individual people. So there's a systemic advocacy, but there's also the individual freedom campaigns. There are people in detention right now who were on the bus with us. It's because we wrote letters, because we had people who had letterhead, people who could say they were a U.S. citizen and they were vouching that someone should be able to come home to their family. So advocate, support letters, phone calls. We'll be doing Christmas letter writing in November in a couple weeks. Things to help people inside get free. So two asks, accompaniment and advocacy, and that we join our hearts in collective prayer for this goal to abolish cages and journey to community. There's handouts in the back. Thank you.
With our offering, we also assert that we are part of the independent web of existence. 1 week a month, your gift goes to the community organization we have chosen as our justice partner. And this week, it is Reverend Lee's organization, the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity. What I'd like to do right now is, now that we've got the technical issues solved, is re-show that video that I did during announcements. It's very short, and then we'll do the offertory.
How's everybody doing? My name is Guillermo Medina. I was in detention. I was in this same detention center just about 6 months ago. And first thing, it's a lot of emotions, and then it's just a real trip for my mind to get adjusted to be on the other side of the fence.
At the intersection of spirituality and social justice, there is a convergence of people of faith, defending the humanity of immigrants and the dignity of the incarcerated. Because every person is sacred. Compassion has no borders, and love has no walls. The Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity.
Please join in singing We'll Build a Land, number 121 in the Gray Hymnal. The words are on screen and in the online order of service. Whether online or in the main hall, please stay after the benediction for our conversation time. We begin with a greeting time, a chance to speak to someone you haven't met before or haven't seen in a while. Now, if you're online, please unmute yourself and touch hands virtually like this, against the size of your screen, while we say our benediction together. And if you're in the main hall or the patio, please reach out to hold hands if you and the person next to you are comfortable with that, or cross your arms over your chest if you're more comfortable that way. Go out into the world in peace, be of good courage, hold fast to what is good, return no one evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, rejoice in beauty, speak love with word and deed, honor all beings,